please do not shift your weight during the golf swing. What do I mean by that? You probably learned, just like I did, that you should shift your weight to the right during the backswing. And during the downswing, you start with a lateral movement of the hips before the upper body and arms follow. That's exactly how I learned to play golf, and I kept having trouble hitting the ball cleanly. Of course, I learned to play golf several years ago. That means I've been playing golf for almost 30 years. I've been teaching golf for 16 years. I'm a PGA teaching professional, and golf is still my greatest hobby. Nevertheless, I have repeatedly discovered that there is actually a simpler way to play golf. And that's exactly the way I want to show you once again today. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, please do so right away, because here you'll find useful golf tips every week that will make your life on the golf course easier. And today it's all about why you shouldn't shift your weight. You should simply stay in place. Under no circumstances should you turn your right foot onto the toe so early. You should absolutely not move to the right during the backswing. Why shouldn't you do any of this? For a very, very simple reason. Because if you do all this, you're making your life unnecessarily difficult. Why is that? To put it simply, place your club head on the ground right where your breastbone, your sternum is. This means, in turn, that at impact, at the moment of contact, your sternum must be to the left of the ball when hitting irons or any shots you play from the ground. And yes, you heard that right. For shots that you play from the ground, so that also applies to a 3-wood, a hybrid, or a long iron. Even then, at impact, your sternum, your breastbone, your upper swing center must be to the left of the ball. And when I talk about the upper swing center, of course, there is also a lower swing center. Just a quick explanation. The center of the pelvis, simply put, the belt buckle, is the lower swing center. And the center of the shoulders, the breastbone, the sternum, is the upper swing center. And today we're focusing specifically on this point. Because if you, as I was taught as well, shift your weight to the right during the backswing, then very, very often your sternum moves to the right along with the weight shift. And if your sternum, your breastbone, your upper swing center ends up to the right of the ball, then it becomes extremely difficult. Because then you have to be able to position your breastbone 10 to 12 centimeters to the left of the ball during the follow-through. That is the task of your follow-through. And that this is really, really difficult, I think I don't need to explain that to you in detail, because that's actually where most of my players fail. It's just extremely, extremely hard to time. It might work for some shots, but it's not repeatable. Playing golf probably doesn't work that way. Unless you have the time, like a tour player, to spend 8 to 10 hours hitting balls on a driving range and do that every day, because then you'll definitely get the timing right. And that's exactly what I want to say. Of course, there are players on tour who swing like that, yes, but it's definitely not the easiest way. Instead, I want to ask you to simply stay still. However, I do want to add a little word between simply and stay still, namely to add properly. That is, simply stay still properly. What do I mean by properly? By properly, I mean the following. I want to ask you, even with a 4-iron, to set up and place the ball relatively in the middle. Under no circumstances do I want to see you placing the ball very far forward in your stance. Because if the ball is very far forward, then it becomes significantly harder to position your sternum to the left of the ball at impact. After all, the ball is so far forward. So instead, please go ahead and place the ball in the middle even when you're using your 4-iron. That way you'll be able to hit the ball first and then the ground. If you simply maintain the correct stance. What do I mean by correct? Now I'd like to jump in again right here. By correct, I mean that you already set yourself up properly and you position both your lower swing center, your belt buckle, and your upper swing center, your sternum, to the left of the ball. How far to the left of the ball? I would recommend 10 to 12 centimeters. It's always important to me that the lower swing center is never further to the right of the ball than the upper swing center, because otherwise the whole swing would become a bit too steep. You would probably have the tendency to come from the outside, and I would also ask you to avoid that. Instead, make sure that in your setup, your pelvis, the center of your pelvis, your belt buckle, is shifted a little to the left, about 10 to 12 centimeters. Your upper body should automatically follow. If it doesn't do that, then I would ask you to also move your upper body a little as well. And do it to the extent that your sternum ends up to the left of the ball, as a right-handed golfer that is. And if you are able to position yourself correctly, as I just described, then all you need to do is just stay in that position. Because most, or many, of my students set themselves up correctly and then make the mistake during the follow-through of turning their right foot up onto the toe far too early. And as a result, the pelvis shifts to the right and suddenly the lower swing center ends up behind your ball again, and you would end up making very, very poor contact with the ball again. So now you might be asking yourself, what should you do? Instead of turning your right foot up onto the toe early, I want to ask you to try to feel that your right foot stays on the ground as long as possible, that your right leg stays extended as long as possible, and that your right foot rolls over the inside edge. Of course, at some point, as you continue to rotate, your right heel will naturally lift off the ground on its own. And that's perfectly fine. But please make sure that this doesn't happen too early. It would be a shame to waste your good setup. All right, here we go. 316 meters. I simply position myself correctly. I'm holding a 4-iron, and my only task now is to stand as stable as possible. No weight shift. No, just stay standing still. And with that, I should be able to hit the ball first and only then the ground. Yes, that was a very good shot. And the only thing I focused on was staying still. Stay still and don't shift your weight. Because in my view, that's a retro golf swing. Yes, don't worry, I did the same thing for years as well. I was taught that way too, but it just made my life a lot harder. And my job, at least from my perspective, is to teach you the easiest golf swing. And that's exactly my goal as a golf instructor. As I said, I want to show you the simplest way to move a golf club. And even when hitting uphill out of the rough, I simply need to just stay still. I've chosen a sand wedge here. I have just under 90 meters to the green. The only task I have now is to make a good, clean setup. Where, right from the setup, I position both my belt buckle and my sternum to the left of the ball. For me, that's a good, clean setup. Ideally, the 2 points, the belt buckle and the sternum, should also be positioned correctly in relation to each other. As I already mentioned at the beginning, what I mean by that is that, ideally, the lower swing center should always be a little further forward than the upper swing center. That means the belt buckle should always be a little closer to the target than the sternum. Nevertheless, it should, or rather, in my view, the sternum still needs to be positioned to the left of the ball in order to have the possibility of hitting the ball first, and then, as already mentioned, only then the ground. Here, I don't have an ideal lie. The ball is not only in the rough, but it's also sitting a bit deep in a little depression. So what does that mean? Exactly, I will also adjust the ball position a bit, moving it to the right. Because as I believe I already mentioned, the further to the right the ball is positioned in the stance, the higher the likelihood that at impact, my sternum, my upper swing center, will be to the left of the ball. And that's extremely important, especially for shots like these. When I'm playing uphill, I naturally adjust myself to the slope. I make sure that my shoulders and my hip axis are aligned with the incline of the slope. But nevertheless, I also make sure that, relative to the slope, both of my points, my 2 swing centers, are to the left of the ball. And then normally everything here should work out just fine, because I just explained how it would work to do it right, but with 100% certainty, I can't claim it. I just simply stand still. My right foot stays still, and both of my swing centers are positioned to the left of the ball. A very good contact. The direction is perfect. Let's see how close my buddy is to the flag. I hope it's a good birdie. Opportunity. Something that's really, really important. And I say this in almost all of my videos. Please always replace your divots and repair pitch marks. It doesn't hurt to replace someone else's divot or repair other people's pitch marks either. There should be a 1 to 2% slope, which means I aim my ball a little to the right, and then I deliberately leave the flag in the hole, because it's downhill. If my backswing is relatively shaky like just now, then it was simply too slow. The movement needs to be a bit quicker so that the putter head moves straight back. Stay still, buddy. Just stay still. Just stay still. And with that, I would like to sincerely thank you for watching, and I say goodbye with a par. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell, because that's the only way you'll be notified when a new video is online. I wish you a wonderful evening and a great game.